She stood in the middle of a crowded room, music playing loud, voices swirling around her like wind. Yet she felt invisible. People laughed, people danced, people spoke in clusters of smiles and glances, but no one looked at her. Her dress was plain, her hair tied back without care, her shoes worn at the edges. She whispered to herself, "Nobody sees me." It wasn't the first time she had said it. For years, it had been the echo of her existence. She had become the quiet shadow in the corner, the forgotten one who blended into walls and silence. But that night, fate was listening. That night, a man noticed. He didn't just see her, he carried her into the light where she belonged. Sparkles, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us of humanity, please take a moment to like this video, share it with friends, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Kindness Tales. Your support helps bring more such real, emotional stories to life. Sparkles. Her name was Emily. She lived in a small town in North Carolina, in a weathered apartment building where peeling paint told stories of lives that came and went. Emily's life had always been a quiet one. She had been the girl who read in the back row of the class, the one teachers forgot to call on, the one whose parents argued too loudly to notice her grades or her silence. She grew up learning to shrink herself. At work, in a tiny cafe, she brewed coffee and smiled faintly at customers who rarely remembered her name. Every evening she walked home alone, carrying her tired heart in a paper bag of routine. The world had told her in 1,000 ways that she didn't matter. Friends slipped away, her family remained distant, and love had never even brushed her life. She didn't hate anyone for it, she just believed she wasn't meant to be seen. But inside, hidden beneath layers of quiet, there was a voice, a dream, a fragile spark begging for light. Emily had always written poetry. Scribbled lines on scraps of paper, filled notebooks with words she never read aloud, poems about hope, pain, loss, and the tiny miracles she observed in others. Words were her heartbeat, but she never dared to share them. One rainy Thursday night, when the cafe was slow, she sat at a corner table with her notebook. The sound of rain against the glass matched the rhythm of her pen. She didn't notice the man who walked in until he cleared his throat softly. His name was Daniel, a photographer known around town for capturing raw, human moments in his lens. He had been coming into the cafe for weeks, always ordering the same black coffee, always sitting near the window. That night, he noticed the notebook. "Do you write?" he asked gently, breaking into her silence. Emily's instinct was to close the book and shake her head. People had laughed before. But something in Daniel's eyes felt different, steady, kind, genuinely curious. She nodded slowly. He smiled and said nothing more, but from that night forward, he always looked at her. Not through her, not past her, but directly at her, as if she was worth noticing. Weeks passed, and the conversations grew. Daniel asked about her poems, about her favorite writers, about her view of the world. Emily, hesitant at first, began to share little pieces of herself, fragments of words and thoughts. Daniel listened as if each word carried weight. He had a way of making silence comfortable, of letting her fill it when she was ready. And for the first time in her life, Emily began to feel that maybe her existence mattered to someone. One evening, Daniel asked if she would ever read one of her poems aloud. She froze. The very idea terrified her. Her voice was small, she told him. Nobody cared about her words. She repeated the line she had whispered all her life, "Nobody sees me." Daniel looked at her for a long moment and then said, "Then maybe it's time the world does. Sometimes all it takes is one person to hold the light for another." It was a simple statement, but it stayed with her. Days later, Emily found herself sitting in front of a small stage in the back of a bookstore. Daniel had invited her to an open mic night, assuring her she didn't have to perform, only to listen. The room was filled with strangers, artists, dreamers, people sharing their music and words. Emily sat with her notebook clutched to her chest, heart racing every time someone took the microphone. She thought of leaving a dozen times, but Daniel sat beside her, calm, patient, encouraging. Halfway through the night, Daniel leaned toward her and whispered, "Your words belong here." Emily shook her head furiously, fear tightening her throat. But before she could protest more, Daniel walked to the host, whispered something, and moments later, Emily's name was called. Her body froze. Her legs felt like stone. The spotlight on the small stage felt blinding. She whispered again, "Nobody sees me," but this time, Daniel stood, took her hand, and gently led her forward. "They will now," he whispered. She trembled as she stepped onto the stage. The microphone stood waiting, the room silent, the audience curious. For a moment, she wanted to run. But then, she looked down at Daniel in the crowd. His eyes told her she wasn't alone. Slowly, Emily opened her notebook, her voice shaky as she began to read. Her words were simple, raw, real. She spoke of loneliness, of nights spent unseen, of the quiet longing to matter. She wrote about the beauty in unnoticed things, the way the sky blushed before dawn, the kindness of strangers never spoken of, the fragile courage in simply surviving. Her voice cracked at first, but as she continued, something inside her broke open. She poured years of silence into that microphone. By the time she finished, the room was hushed, many with tears in their eyes. And then came the applause. Loud, genuine, endless applause. Emily's heart shook with disbelief. She had been seen. Truly seen. That night changed everything. Word spread quickly in the small town. People began asking about her poems. The bookstore owner invited her back, and soon, she was reading regularly. Strangers approached her with gratitude, telling her her words gave them hope. Emily's world, once gray and invisible, began to bloom with color. She wasn't just a shadow anymore, she was a voice, a presence, a light. Through it all, Daniel never once took credit. He stayed by her side, quietly encouraging, capturing moments through his camera. He would show her photographs of herself on stage, saying, "This is who you are. Don't ever forget it." For Emily, it was overwhelming at first, but slowly, she embraced the truth, she mattered. Her words mattered. She had always mattered. She just needed someone to remind her. Months passed, and Emily's confidence grew. She published her first small collection of poems, funded by the very community that had once walked past her without noticing. She began speaking at schools, telling children who felt invisible that their voices were worth hearing. Each time she stood before an audience, she remembered the moment she whispered, "Nobody sees me," and the man who carried her into the spotlight. And yet, she never stopped being humble. Fame was never the goal. All she wanted was to reach hearts, to tell stories, to let others know they were not alone. Daniel remained her anchor, her friend, her quiet supporter who believed in her even when she faltered. Their bond grew into something deeper, a love not of grand gestures but of steady presence. He had given her the gift of being seen, and in return, she had given him the joy of watching someone bloom. Emily would later say in an interview, "We all carry invisible stories. We all long to be seen, to be heard. Sometimes, it only takes one person to hold out their hand and remind us that our voice is worthy. Daniel did that for me. And I want to spend my life doing that for others." Her words became a movement. Her poetry reached beyond her town, spreading online, touching lives she never met. People wrote to her from across the world, saying her poems gave them strength to keep going. And through it all, she held on to the memory of that night, the night she believed she was invisible, and the night one man refused to let her remain unseen. Sparkling Heart, if this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to Kindness Tales for more inspiring, real stories that remind us of the beauty of kindness. Sparkling Heart. Before we end, we'd love to hear from you. Backhand index pointing right. Please comment below one moment in your life when someone truly saw you, or when you helped someone feel seen. Your story might inspire someone else today. And so, Emily's life became proof that invisibility is not destiny. We may feel unseen, unheard, forgotten, but sometimes, all it takes is one act of kindness, one person who refuses to look away, to bring us into the light. She once whispered, "Nobody sees me." But now the world listened, and her voice would never be silent again.